Good morning. Beautiful Beacon, how are you today? Beautiful. You are beautiful. I'm Reverend Robin. My pronouns are she, her. I have the good fortune of being a member of the lead ministry team here at Beacon, and I offer a physical description for anyone who is joining us online or in person with any kind of visual impairment. I am wearing a khaki blazer. My shoes are just at the edge of violating the fashion rules on September 1st and Labor Day, and this gorgeous, mostly red but multicolored stole created by our own Helen Kerr. I am joined with a fabulous team on this Labor Day weekend, and so grateful for it. Misa Iwama, Director of Music Ministry. We have John O'Neill, who is on the piano. It's always wonderful, John, how you watch every step leading to the welcome in order to wrap it. It's good to have you here with us. Abby Laney will be our worship associate, and Will Cisco is behind the scenes here, as is Chris Budin, operating our sound and our live stream tech, and Heather Stover with us as our chaplain. Together, all of us, your entire team on this weekend, say welcome to each and every one of you. Newcomers, long haulers, in person, those joining virtually. We are Unitarian Universalists, a faith that centers love and pitches a really big tent, y'all. So if you're an atheist or one who prays to God daily, we say welcome here. If you are here with lots of questions and ready to dive in, or if you are rocking the back pew like Chris Budin is this morning, we say welcome to you. If you are here for joy, for solace, for companionship, for community and care, we say welcome. Welcome to Beacon. Not only do we make space and welcome you, but we declare that we need you, all of you. So let us bring our whole selves in as we take in a deep breath this day. And let us gather together.
Good morning. Our first song today is in the hymnal. It's number 360, Here We Have Gathered. I invite you to rise in all ways possible as we join in singing this song that's almost 500 years old in its tune, with some lyrics from the past century. Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's unsung. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matters small and great. May of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can, sing now together this our heart's unsung. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadow not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now to friendship this our heart's own song.
Hello, beloved. I am Abby Laney. For anyone who needs a visual description this morning, how do I describe this? I am wearing a black dress that I took out of my mother's closet and have not returned. And as per usual, 5-inch heels when I'm not wearing sneakers. And my hair is curly today because I didn't straighten it in time. Would anyone like to do us the favor and the honor of lighting our chalice this morning? Anybody? Don't raise your hands all at once. Oh, of course. Come on over. We kindle the light of justice and generosity, the illumination of interdependence and equity, the radiance of pluralism and transformation, in the enduring flame of love. It is an invitation this hour to deepen our draw from ancient wells, to listen to ongoing revelation, and to touch fleeting mysteries and emerging truths.
Good morning, Beacon. Good morning. My name is Heather Stober. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Black American woman, and today I'm wearing black pants and a beige top and a black sweater. You might also notice that I have on this maroon stole. This stole signifies my role as chaplain here at Beacon. As a chaplain, my role is to offer confidential spiritual care to our community by listening and creating a supportive space for what you may be experiencing in your life. If you need spiritual support, please feel free to connect with me after the service, or you can reach out to a member of the lead ministry team and they will ensure that you are connected with a chaplain who will provide a confidential and safe environment for you to speak. One ritual of spiritual care is our community candle lighting. Together we light candles of joy, sorrow, and gratitude. This morning, we light a candle of sorrow for the family of each of the 6 Israeli hostages who were killed shortly before rescue, including the American Israeli Hirsch Goldberg Poland. Fervent prayers and pleas that an agreement is reached to end the war, to stop the destruction of Gaza, and to return all 101 hostages. We light candles this day for the over 40,000 Palestinians killed in this war. May an agreement be reached. We also light a candle of joy, welcoming Abram, grandchild of Joe and Colette Parsons. For this and so much more, we invite you to come forward now to light a candle here in our sanctuary, wherever you are. Maybe on your own home altar. Please come forward.
song by Gene Ritchie as we mark what seems to be nearing the end of the summer. My Lord said unto me, do you like my garden so fair? You may live in this garden, the garden of my Lord, and I'll return in the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. This earth is a garden, the garden of my Lord, who walks in the cool of the day. My Lord said unto me, do you like my garden so pure? You may live in this garden if you keep the waters clean, and I'll return in the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. You may live in this garden, the garden of my Lord, who walks in the cool of the day. My Lord said unto me, do you like my garden so free? You may live in this garden if you keep the people free, and I'll return in the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. Now is the cool of the day. You may live in this garden, the garden of my Lord, who walks in the cool of the day, who walks in the cool of the day, who walks in the cool of the day.
Thank you, Misa. Would you breathe with me, beloved? Settling in to the space and the time and even the rhythm of this breath that is yours. Beginning at the very top of your head, if you would, join me, drawing on the rhythm of this breath. Just imagining a wave coming through, one that unfurrows a brow, maybe lowers your eyebrows a bit, On that exhale, releasing any tension in your jaw. Perhaps your shoulders need an extravagant roll to come down from your ears. Keep drawing on this rhythm to allow a peaceful stillness to come through your body. Down through your chest and your abdomen. Through your arms, maybe your hands take an open posture of rest. Down through your seat, your legs, finding grounding as you're able to the floor and to the very earth herself. Here in this place of stillness, of an open attention, on this Labor Day weekend, I invite you to call into your awareness someone whose work has made your life possible. Bring into your mind and your attention the fullness of their face, maybe how their voice sounds. Using all of your senses. The way they spoke, how they made you feel. Holding this beloved in your mind's eye across these years and miles and maybe even past the threshold of death itself. Say to this beloved whose work has made your life possible, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With an abundance of heart and mind, I invite you to draw on that breath once more, maybe to bring some movement to your hands or your neck, your face, maybe opening eyes as you are ready. Bringing that beloved's life here in this room, here in this time, together.
Here's a song as we celebrate Labor Day. May the work I've done speak for me. May the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, may the work I've done speak for me. So I think we should try to learn it together. The first line, may the work I've done speak for me. You want to just sing that? May the work I've done speak for me. Same words. May the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, may the work I've done speak for me. Okay, so what we just did is we practiced the song so that we can learn it, understand it better, and actually physically get better at singing it as well. And by the way, that's not unlike what happens at choir rehearsal, so now you know you already have all the skills you need if you ever want to join the choir. But going back to practicing music, so performing is probably like 1%, maybe less than 1% of music. Practicing is the other 99%. And that is to get the muscle memory going and emotionally connect and get some intellectual understanding of what's happening. Practicing is repetition with intent to get better. And practicing is what I love because that's when you can really dig deep and ponder what's most important in the text or in the musical line. So shaping a phrase or underlining a syllable, it's all worthy of practice. So it's the work of music that gives me glimpses of the worlds that can be. So when I practice, things I haven't been able to do yet, suddenly I can do, whether it's a musical phrase or imagining something artistic that feels profoundly like truth. That is a wonderful feeling, especially when you can do it with other people. I love singing here at Beacon, and I love working with the congregants, whether or not they're in the kids' chorus or the adult chorus or singing here on a service. May the life I've led speak for me. May the life I've led speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I've led speak for me. There's other practices that I witness here at Beacon too, not just the practice of music. One is the practice of giving in a lot of different ways every week. Beacon people give their money. They also really give their time in volunteer work, for instance, the board, or Summit Warm Hearts, or 100 other ways that people give. Beacon gives its talents and passions, whether that is making soup, or organizing events, or holding fundraisers. Beacon gives of its relationships. That could be community groups, going strong, or it could be educating younger people. When I witness all these ways of giving, I'm just in awe of the community. There's also the practice of gratitude. So I'll say, I recognize that you are investing your energy here. Thank you. And I witness that you are calling out injustice and working for a better way, ways to improve the world for everyone. Thank you. Thank you also for coming here to celebrate your babies, your graduations, your weddings, and then your entire lives with memorial services. Thank you. The privilege is unbelievably meaningful. And then there's the practice of hope. For me, witnessing the work that Beacon does is truly the reason to get up in the morning and come. Because if there was not hope for the future, we would only exist in despair. And that is not what's happening here. So I see the good of being not just the resistance, but also an example of how things should be. Just the way in music, when you practice, you can see how things could be. So I started at Beacon at a very politically fraught time in the country. It was 2019. But I came here because I wanted to practice hope. And being here makes me feel that, yes, I can be part of a larger mission. So whether you came here this morning to connect with music or poetry or a sermon or candle lighting or maybe coffee hour, in this beautiful space with you beautiful people, we're going to practice hope. May the friends I made speak for me. May the friends I made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, may the friends I made speak for me.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that one up. Once again, I am Abby Laney, and for our readings, we have two poems today by Langston Hughes. The first is entitled Freedom, and the second, Union. Freedom. Freedom will not come today, this year, nor ever through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet and own the land. I tire so of hearing people say, "Let things take their course, tomorrow is another day." I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed planted in a great need. I live here too. I want my freedom just as you. And union. Not me alone. I know now. But all the whole oppressed, poor world, black and white, must put their hands with mine to shake the pillars of those temples wherein the false gods dwell and worn-out altars stand to well defended and the rule of greeds upheld. That must be ended.
With the gift and generosity of Langston Hughes' words and Misa's testimony, thank you, Misa, our morning offering will now be most gratefully received.
We're going to sing Bread and Roses, which is also on the handout. James Oppenheim published the text of this song back in 1911 and attributed it to the women in the West. A year before, a factory inspector named Helen Todd wrote that women's vote will go towards helping forward the time when life's bread, which is home, shelter, and security, and the roses of life, which are music, education, nature, and books, shall be the heritage of every child. So this is a song that is often associated with the labor movement and civil rights. So I invite you to rise in any way possible and join in singing Bread and Roses. As we come marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, a thousand workshops gray are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing bread and come marching, marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we come marching, marching, unnumbered women then go crying through our singing their ancient song of brand. The Lord and love and beauty, their drudging spirits knew. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we come marching, marching, we bring the greater days, the rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, and the toil when one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses.
Thank you, Misa. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for lending your voice. For most of my life, Labor Day was simply the last long weekend before school began. And as I grew older, it became the arbitrary line across which white shoes and white pants shall not be worn. I'm just at the edge this morning. In all honesty, it wasn't until I began organizing in North Carolina and working more closely with unions like SEIU that I began to understand some of the history of the labor movement and the importance of Labor Day as not only a celebration of the many achievements of the labor movement, but also a moment to recenter in the struggle yet to be won within labor rights. Now, there's a lot to celebrate that we have the labor movement and labor unions to thank for. Ending child labor among them, which is woven into the song that we just sang. Introducing health care and higher wages, ensuring 2 days off a week, creating the 40-hour work week as a concept, better working conditions, safer working conditions, from a time when, as we sang in that song, too many workers, among many of them women and children, died because of unsafe working conditions in this country. And of course, the right to collective bargaining. Suddenly, labor unions, I don't know if you've noticed, are back in style. At each of the conventions, Republican and Democrat, labor leaders featured prominently in the program. And in fact, in the comparisons and reviews of the political party conventions, high on the list was the number of labor unions and labor union leaders that were speaking at the conventions. And there were forecasts on what this could foretell of the presidential election. Then, of course, in September of just last year, 2023, President Biden made history, right, by being the first sitting president to join a picket line when he joined the UAW workers' strike in Wayne County, Michigan. This May, April Verrett was elected the first black president of SEIU, the second largest union in the United States. People are paying attention to unions in new ways in just the last 2 years. And unions, to their credit, are taking on new directions and organizing in new ways in places like among fast food workers that was almost unthinkable a decade ago. But unions in the labor movement did not always receive such praise and attention and fanfare in this country. Well over a century ago, labor unions were ridiculed, they were fought, they were attacked. The wins that we have today were hard won. Unions first began to appear, as many of you know, during the Industrial Revolution. But what you may not know is that in addition to fighting governments and business owners, they occasionally found themselves fighting religious groups, in particular, Christianity. Growing robustly first in Europe, unions often ran in opposition to the churches and the type of sermons that might be preached from a pulpit. By the late 1800s, Europe was under rapid secularization, and some wonder if it was in part because they withdrew from the struggle of the working poor. At the time, Pope Leo XIII was deeply disturbed by these two things: the conditions for workers, how many people were dying in the conditions in factories, and all of the inventions brought by the Industrial Revolution. But he was also deeply concerned by the secularization in Europe, and he looked to the United States and feared a similar pattern. And so, motivated by the needs of the church and the moral call to respond to the treatment of workers, the Vatican issued something called Rerum Novarum on May 15, 1891. It was a papal encyclical, and if your Latin isn't as polished as mine is not, roughly the encyclical was entitled The Rights and Duties of Capital and Labor. It laid out theological arguments for workers' rights and the ethical tenets of the relationship between labor and the production of capital. Here's a quick quote, and it's going to get more exciting, so stay with me. I can see you. The members of the working classes are citizens by nature and by the same right as the rich. This was a revolutionary statement in 1891. In some places, it's still a revolutionary statement. They are real parts, living the life which makes up through the family the body of the commonwealth, and it need hardly be said that they are in every city very largely in the majority. It would be irrational to neglect one portion of the citizens and favor another, and therefore the public administration must duly and solicitously provide for the welfare and the comfort of the working classes. Otherwise, that law of justice will be violated, which ordains that each man, human, shall have his due. It was a game changer for the labor movement in the United States. And I'll say I never really thought I'd be quoting from papal encyclicals in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, but history is what it is, okay? Up until that point, the labor movement was largely a secular movement, except for the leadership and engagement of many Jewish communities, particularly Jewish American women were at the front lines of much of the labor movement. And to be truthful, religion was something that a lot of labor organizers were kind of wary of and still are to this day. In part, maybe because they were influenced by folks like Karl Marx, who famously said that religion is the opium of the people. Masses, people, yes, you can find, he's got a couple quotes. He also said it is the sigh of the oppressed culture, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of our soulless conditions. Not a ringing endorsement. And although the first labor union was gathered in the United States, at least in 1794, unions were often viewed as troublemakers disrupting American life. Many organizing tactics were pursued with serious legal charges, including conspiracy. Even the military was brought to bear against Americans in a few instances to break up strikes, like the mine wars in 1913 or the Pullman strikes. But Rerum Novarum, that papal encyclical, gave a moral framework for economic justice. And out of it, new movements began to emerge that seemed even a decade prior impossible. In the writing, the Pope heavily criticized socialism, but he also rejected unregulated capitalism. And he lifted up the dignity of the worker and the work, creating a moral narrative that we see in our own values today that we just passed at General Assembly as Unitarian Universalists. We can draw a line directly back to this papal encyclical, and I know some of you are very uncomfortable right now, but it's Catholic social teaching. It's profound economic justice that we Unitarian Universalists then drew on as we created the idea that we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. That comes from the founding of economic justice in the late 1800s. With that papal encyclical and the abolition of slavery in the United States, a growing block of union workers began to rise up in the 20th century. Many of them, including A. Philip Randolph of the Pullman car strikes, began drawing on religion in innovative ways, creating prayer protests, drawing in churches and synagogues in the rising labor movement. This is what inspired Langston Hughes in the poem we heard today, Union. Not me alone, I know now, but all the whole oppressed poor world, white and black, must put their hands with mine. So you would imagine with that history, where even the Catholic Church was slamming free market capitalism and lifting up the workers of the world, that surely Unitarian Universalists were on the front lines. Sort of. That's where it gets a little more complicated. Remember that the Unitarians and the Universalists merged in 1961, so we need to take them as separate cases. Now, while our Universalist ancestors were themselves often working class, remember our Unitarian ancestors were often the ones in power. Centered in Boston, they held political offices and even owned many prominent companies. 4 of our presidents were Unitarians. And although the Unitarians were often abolitionists and advocates for reform in prison and schools and hospitals, they were not always in favor of restructuring American life in the way in which was promoted by unions. That was a bit too radical for some of those Boston elite. The Transcendentalists who came out of the Unitarians and critiqued the Unitarians heavily did try attempting utopian societies where they would have remedied many of the social ills and the abuses of industrialization. But every one of these endeavors failed, often in part because in these utopian societies, the person leading the effort would not give up control and share ownership of that society. And you can read more about that in Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd's book, After the Good News. There is good news in it. It's just, the Universalists, by contrast, were prominent in some of the labor movement. We have Horace Greeley. They believed not only in reforming working conditions, but Universalists also tied their understanding of economic justice to abolition. It was about a unified, universal struggle for human dignity. And yet Universalists struggled too. Famously, George Pullman of the Pullman car strikes, a Universalist who fought unions pretty viciously. At the end of the Pullman strikes, 34 people were dead. When the Unitarians and Universalists merged in 1961, the Universalists were honestly much smaller and less wealthy than the Unitarians. And in so many ways, the Unitarian side of the family kind of took over the faith. While we have supported labor movements across the ensuing decades, notably in the 21st century in particular, within many of our congregations, a persistent classism thrives. It is why I believe so much of our anti-racism work today centers around identity rather than economic understandings of the creation of race in this country in the first place. I'm not denying the importance of identity in our work, but lifting up that economic justice of which labor is inextricably tied in the United States is also deeply a struggle against racism and sexism. And it is not just a Unitarian Universalist challenge. Go into an elementary school, even in New Jersey, and ask what they are teaching of Dr. King's dream. Invariably, I promise you that they will talk about the March on Washington, and they will shorten the title of the March on Washington and not mention that it was the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. There is a focus on the personal prejudice that denies the systemic injustice and thereby allows it to continue. Or consider how Langston Hughes is read in most classrooms across the U.S. as a preeminent Black poet. But abroad, Langston Hughes is known, yes, as a preeminent Black American poet, but also one of the most influential working class poets in the world. That is how he is often studied in other parts of the world. For a liberal religion increasingly centered on liberation with recently passed values of equity and justice and interdependence and pluralism, generosity and transformation, all of it centered in love, I think we are called to deeper work for economic justice, deeper work to fight classism within our own hearts, within our own communities, and certainly within our world. To make that declaration, we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. How does this declaration change our living in the intimate? Do we pause before asking someone, "What do you do?" As if what you do is the measure of who you are? Do we stop our own negative talk on ourselves for being in debt or financially struggling? Do we stop blaming ourselves or beating ourselves up as if it's only our fault and there's not this incredibly entrenched system at play and so many people struggling, including here in this room? Do we appreciate our own worth and our own work? Do we understand ourselves as more than what we do? How does this declaration transform our interpersonal living? Do we appreciate all work? Gig work, fast food workers, nursing aides, Amazon storage workers. I could go on. The layers of quote unquote invisible workers. Do we pay attention to each other, stick up for each other, and fight for each other, risk some pain for the collective liberation as those labor movements did a century ago? How does this declaration of dignity and worthiness transform our public living? Do we center economic justice and a living wage and the worth of someone beyond their production in public policy? Do we declare that the success of an economy will not be the GDP or market performance, but the quality of life for the people living within that economy, if they can actually afford bread and roses? What if this moment, as we have just redone our values this June as Unitarian Universalists, what if this moment became a movement, a reawakening, a reopening, an opportunity to experience something that not all of our spiritual ancestors understood or were willing to do? And maybe in Langston Hughes' vision for freedom, we could hear that opening when he says, "For freedom is a strong seed planted in a great need." Freedom, a word that cries out for a truer welcome, a commitment to real equity and lasting justice with the willingness to receive a story, even if it does not conform to our expectations. A willingness to tell a story, even if it feels like no one will listen. A commitment to struggle and labor for a new story that we can barely imagine, and yet those labor organizers, they imagined and made it so. A dream that we can barely imagine, but could yet be, where the work we've done speaks for generations to come. So may we be. Amen.
I invite you to rise in all ways possible. And we are going to sing, "May the Work I've Done Speak for Me," which is on your handout. May the work I've done speak for me. May the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, may the work I've done speak for me. May the life I've lived speak for me. May the life I've lived speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, may the life I've lived speak for me. May the friends I've made speak for me. May the friends I've made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, may the friends I made speak for me. May the friends I made speak for me. Thank you, John.
Beloved, would you take hands with one another for our closing blessing? If you're joining us online, I invite you, as you're able, to extend your hands toward mine and toward Heather's. And now may the love that is our source and our ultimate return, may it animate you, may it fill you, may you shine in that light. And in so doing, beloved, together, may we be a beacon. Amen, and blessed be.